who, as we know, was the former executive chairman of Lasco Manufacturing Limited, and the tongue of good report has been heard on his account from many quarters. So I ask the clerk to write in relation to the condolences offered by the Senate to his family and friends. And I ask that the Senate also approve us writing to the Chief of Staff, indicating our condolences to the passing in the last 2 weeks of 2 young officers of the Jamaica Defense Force, Captain Blake Roper, who lost his life in a car accident a couple of weeks ago, and also recently the killing of Major Bonnie Paul Williams. I'm going to ask the clerk to write to the Chief of Staff, indicate to her the condolences of the Senate, and ask her to write accordingly, or to convey the sentiment of the Senate to the family of both young officers who lost their lives in extremely tragic circumstances. Thank you. Statements by ministers.
Mr. President, allow me to simply add my condolences to the families, not only of Senator Williams and MP Williams, but of course to the families of Las Chin and to the families of Captain Blake and Major Williams, pardon me. Captain Blake Roper and Major Williams as well. My apologies. Mr. President, I am pleased to keep our nation abreast of the work done by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade by way of ministerial statement to this Honourable Senate. I rise, therefore, to provide, yes, there are copies, so they'll be distributed. I don't hand them out myself, but I know Senator Morris should have received his electronically. Sure, why not? Thank you.
Give one.
I rise to provide an update and to report very summarily on 4 major undertakings which my team and I at the Ministry have had the honor, or rather, yes, we've had the honor of hosting here in Kingston. The first is the 26th regular meeting of the Caribbean Community Council for Foreign and Community Relations, COFCOR. The 26th meeting welcomed Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, CARICOM Secretary General, on her first official visit to Jamaica, and brought together almost full representation of member states at the foreign minister level. All member states were present, but all but 2 at the foreign minister level, which is highly commendable. And we certainly met together in great camaraderie to pursue closer foreign policy coordination. Importantly, the meeting marked the beginning of Jamaica's 1-year chairmanship of the Council, and it was the first in-person regular meeting since 2019, and it will run along with the celebration of CARICOM's 50th anniversary. Also of interest to Jamaica and featuring high among the outcomes of this engagement were deliberations relating to CARICOM's engagements with high-level representatives of Japan, Slovenia, and Spain, as well as the endorsement of Jamaica's and other candidatures by the COFCOR. We also addressed processes underway at the United Nations towards implementation of Agenda 2030, including in relation to health, climate change, financing for development, and the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index, among several other matters. On the margins of this meeting, I was also pleased to sign, together with the Honourable Kerry Simmons, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Barbados, a memorandum of understanding for deepening bilateral cooperation between both of our countries. Mr. President, in respect of the 11th UK Caribbean Forum, it was convened in person for the first time in over 7 years. And in my capacity as COFCOR Chair, I was honoured to co-chair the forum with the Right Honourable James Cleverly, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs of the UK. Jamaica was also pleased to welcome the Vice Minister for Economic Affairs and International Cooperation of the Dominican Republic and the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Cuba to participate in these discussions. Important exchanges were held on matters related to trade and investment, financing for development, strategies to address climate change and adaptation, as well as reparatory justice. During Jamaica's intervention on behalf of the Caribbean in relation to trade and investment in particular, I had the opportunity to emphasize the importance of operationalizing the UK-Caribbean EPA, the Economic Partnership Agreement, to stimulate trade and investment, as well as the need to focus its application to services as we seek to diversify our economies. Similarly, I communicated on the region's behalf the need to continue to pay significant attention to the concerns of the Windrush generation and their descendants, particularly in matters of compensation. In respect of the inaugural Jamaica-UK Strategic Dialogue, Mr. President, I was also pleased to welcome the Foreign Secretary to the Ministry's headquarters at the Hugh Lawson Shearer Building for this inaugural meeting and the very first visit of a UK Foreign Secretary to Jamaica in over 2 decades. Members would appreciate that Jamaica and the UK share strong historical, people-to-people, cultural and commercial links. Importantly, the UK is home to one of Jamaica's largest diaspora populations and is one of our largest trading partners. The inauguration of the strategic dialogue provides, therefore, a formal, focused framework for our engagement at the bilateral, regional and multilateral levels. And as point of interest, I will note that Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade will leave shortly for a series of events, including celebration of the of Diaspora Day, which is being marked today, and the UK Diaspora Conference, or Regional Diaspora Conference, which will be held early next week, as well as to mark several Windrush 75 events which are taking place in London. So we have issued a message which is online in the words of Minister Terrelong, and he will be pursuing direct face-to-face engagement with our UK-based diaspora starting very early next week. Mr. President, in terms of outcomes and opportunities, as a result of the involved and focused week of engagements, I'm pleased to report several positive outcomes and promising opportunities for both Jamaica and the Caribbean. In the following 5 cross-cutting areas, they are of particular interest to the Parliament and I would say to the nation as well, namely national security, climate change and adaptation, STEAM education, Windrush issues, and the protracted crisis in Haiti. In respect of national security, following the strategic dialogue, Foreign Secretary Cleverly and I co-signed a joint communique and an aid memoir on the Violence Prevention Partnership. Through this partnership, the United Kingdom will be providing £15 million, just over 2.9 billion Jamaican dollars, for a 6-year project to support the government of Jamaica in addressing root causes of crime at community and school-based levels. So you would have heard Minister of National Security speaking about programs for our inter-school safety and security and violence prevention programs, as well as the 18 to 25 youth engagement programs and going beyond. There is a need for deeper fundamental support of these programs for their monitoring, evaluation and ultimate success, and this £15 million grant contribution will be of significant assistance in this regard. Lack of investment has, of course, allowed crime and violence to remain one of the biggest threats to Jamaica's development and the welfare of our people over decades. This government has, however, made unparalleled investments in national security with encouraging results, including overall decreases in all major crimes to date. Foreign Secretary Cleverly expressed his government's willingness to partner on this £15 million program, focused on evidence-based policymaking, including the public health approach to violence, as discussed at the recent CARICOM symposium held in Trinidad. And one of the things that I wish to note is, while this donation is specific to Jamaica, one of the discussions which we held was the importance of ensuring that the programs we implement here are scoped in such a way and are scalable in such a way that they can be rolled out in other CARICOM countries who are experiencing, to a great extent, some of the same challenges which we are here. And this particular program, in terms of the interschool, the youth, unattached youth, and in fact the broader programs will be looked at, as well as the data management, which will be a critical part of this particular donation. In respect of climate adaptation, Mr. President, coming out of the inaugural strategic dialogue, there was also the announcement by the Foreign Secretary of £7 million, over 1.3 billion Jamaican dollars, to support climate adaptation and to mitigate against the pernicious effects of climate change in Jamaica. Climate change is, of course, one of the cross-cutting issues of the agenda of the COFCOR and the UK Caribbean Forum, as its effects have the potential to derail all our efforts to achieve the Global Sustainable Development Goals and our national development goals. This additional funding will help to leverage increased access to climate finance as part of Jamaica's pioneering role in the Access to Finance Task Force. We're one of 5 pilot countries globally, and I must say I wish Minister Samuda was here, because it really is testament to much of the very painstaking work of him and his team that has ensured, not only through the NDC partnership with the UK, but in various other partnerships with India and within AOSIS, that have ensured that Jamaica is at the forefront of examining how it is we can best, as a small country with a high debt profile, that we can access the types of funding which are available for adaptation, including de-risking of projects to bring in more private sector investment. So Jamaica is and will play a key role in exploring an innovative approach to simplifying and scaling up international climate and nature finance provisions and sharing best practices with most climate vulnerable countries. In respect of STEAM education, Mr. President, the Foreign Secretary and I also witnessed the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of Education and Youth, the National Education Trust, and the British Council for a 5-year program of cooperation on STEAM education. The collaboration will build and enhance the capacity of STEAM teachers and assist the Ministry of Education and Youth with its education management system. Importantly, it is the government's policy and intention to build 7 new purpose-built STEAM academies, which will come on stream ultimately to maximize creativity, curiosity, intellectual rigor, and innovation. So we need to build a foundation for their operation as well as the infrastructure, and the MOU is intended to support that process. As the government positions Jamaica as a technological hub of the Caribbean, and we look forward to hearing more from Minister Morris Dixon in this regard, the government's drive for STEAM education will be critical to bringing more Jamaicans into the labour market, to matching the needs of digital technology-driven market, and of course properly train Jamaicans to take advantage of these opportunities. So my team and I at the Foreign Ministry take very seriously our role in leveraging international partnership for specialized support, including to education, in order to enable Jamaicans to take advantage of emerging opportunities. Mr. President, on the Windrush, as I alluded to earlier, this year marks 75 years since the Windrush, the Empire Windrush, left Victoria Pier, not too far from here at Kingston Harbour, and docked at the Tilbury Docks in Essex with 539 Jamaican residents and several more from the wider Caribbean. In the years that followed, thousands more Caribbean people would arrive to rebuild Britain and to drive its socio-economic rebirth in spite of the many daunting challenges. Both the UK Caribbean Forum and the Jamaica-UK Strategic Dialogue provided opportunities for frank exchanges on immigration and residency difficulties being faced by the descendants of the Windrush generation, as well as steps taken to date by the UK government to address the unjust treatment meted out to them. I was able to reiterate our concerns about the implementation of outstanding issues under the Windrush scheme and to encourage that these be addressed with the sensitivity they deserve, fully valuing the diaspora in the space that they now call home. The parties agreed that commitments made by the UK must be honoured in a timely and indeed sensitive manner. Finally, Mr. President, I would like to update the Senate and the nation on Jamaica's efforts to support our Haitian brothers and sisters in their search to bring an end to the protracted political, humanitarian, and security crises being experienced in that country. CARICOM remains seized of the importance of its good office's role and its commitment to keeping Haiti on the international agenda in support of Haitian-led efforts. The Most Honourable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, continues to play a lead role in CARICOM's response. Members would be aware that Prime Minister Holness led a one-day special CARICOM mission to Port-au-Prince in February of this year that I was honoured to join. During those sessions and consultations in Haiti, there was clear consensus that security was an immediate and critical concern. Some also expressed that while addressing security was paramount, more inclusive and broader dialogue was necessary. It was also made clear on various levels that many Haitian stakeholders would wish to have the opportunity to widen the political consensus towards the holding of national elections under appropriate conditions. Following on that mission, CARICOM endorsed and accepted Jamaica's offer to host a meeting of Haitian stakeholders here in Kingston to advance consensus building and to encourage a much-needed return to stability. Mr. President, the government of Jamaica was convinced that with the right spirit and opportunities to facilitate inclusive partnership in a neutral environment, we could create the space for dialogue and consultations made on mutual respect, openness, and goodwill. Therefore, in a spirit of solidarity and brotherhood, between the 11th and 13th of June, Jamaica hosted more than 50 of our Haitian brothers and sisters here for Kingston Talks. We were pleased to have been able to provide a secure and enabling environment for the serious discussions in which the Prime Minister of Haiti, His Excellency Ariel Henry, and a broad cross-section of Haitian society, including groups representing political, human rights, civil society, religious, youth, and gender interests, engaged. This they did under the guidance and facilitation of the Eminent Persons Group, comprised of 3 former Caribbean Prime Ministers, namely Mr. Bruce Golding of Jamaica, the Right Honourable Perry Christie of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and Dr. the Honourable Kenny Anthony of St. Lucia. Critical moral support to the talks and regional leadership were provided by the Honourable Philip Davis, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and Chair of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM, and the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. Important institutional assistance was provided by the CARICOM Secretariat. Mr. President, the outcome, as we know, acknowledge, and since made public, of course, yesterday by a statement by the Eminent Persons Group, the outcome confirms that while no final agreement was achieved, and we had felt that we were close at a point, the stakeholders were able to address the core issues of the interim governance measures needed to restore confidence in the transition and to ensure that the government could deliver on its commitments. These commitments include the critical issue of security and stability, the organization of credible general elections to choose a legitimate and representative government, constitutional reform, and the pursuance of fundamental reforms required to preclude a repeat of the current crisis. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry committed to greater inclusiveness in governance through the establishment of a government of national unity, beginning with working with the partners of the December 21 Accord to increase the numbers of the High Transition Council in order to include representatives of a wider group of stakeholders. This was quite a movement in positions previously held. The representatives committed to continuing the dialogue as the CARICOM Good Office's processes progresses. These were all, in fact, quite significant, and so we trust that they can be preserved and built on. As a mark of its dedication to the cause, the Eminent Persons Group has committed to go to Haiti to continue these consultations within the next several weeks, and indeed, I did hear it reported Prime Minister Henry, as at yesterday, reaffirmed the welcome and the invitation for the Eminent Persons Group to continue its meetings in Haiti at the next opportunity. Participants, Mr. President, thanked CARICOM for initiating this meeting and expressed gratitude to the Prime Minister and people of Jamaica for their warm hospitality. And I want to pause here, Mr. President, to acknowledge with immense gratitude the sterling efforts of my team at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade for the exceptional role they played on behalf of Jamaica in supporting this mission. Together, yes, they actually deserve applause. They were incredible from top to bottom. They showed the best of Jamaica, the best of our young people, the best of our diplomacy, the best of our professional foreign service. And it was appreciated. It was shared with me personally by participants. I witnessed it every day. We were there late into the night, preparing and throughout the meetings, ensuring that everything that could be done to facilitate consensus, to facilitate a sense of belonging. And it was, it went as far as it was possible for that to go, Mr. President. And I give thanks again for having such an excellent team who were so prepared to give up their best in our tradition of service to the region and in particular to our sister country, Haiti. So, Mr. President, we believe that the Kingston talks were a critical step in the right direction. Jamaica is committed to continuing the journey along with the rest of the region and indeed the international community towards satisfactory and sustainable Haitian-led solutions for the Haitian people. Jamaica remains convinced of the need, however, for sustained international attention on Haiti. And yesterday, again in my capacity as COFCOR chair, I participated in a ministerial meeting on Haiti convened by the Foreign Minister of Canada, which saw the participation of high-level representation from a broad cross-section of countries from regions across the world, all conscious of the special burden we share to bring necessary attention to Haiti's needs. In fact, this very morning, Mr. President, Prime Minister Holness is addressing a meeting of the ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council, ad hoc advisory group on Haiti, of which Jamaica is a member, on the humanitarian and food crises there. Our engagement also finds expression through the Organization of American States, through the Working Group on Haiti, again, where we are a member. Our resolve to support Haiti in this process is undiminished, Mr. President, and the government of Jamaica continues to yearn to see Haiti return to the stability and well-being that her people so well deserve. Mr. President, this is but the smallest glimpse of the diligent work being pursued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. My team and I are proud of what we continue to accomplish and to contribute to our nation and our region's progress, development, and prosperity. Mr. President, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Senator Bunting.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me thank the Minister for his statement, bringing this chamber up to date on recent developments. In particular, on your section on national security, notice the partnership with the UK government, focused on evidence-based policy making, including the public health approach to violence as discussed at the recent CARICOM symposium held in Trinidad. And I really want to welcome the renewed interest in the public health approach to violence prevention. This is something that I championed when I was minister. And since we have the presence of my successor, he can testify to the fact that in our handover discussions, one of the things I pleaded with him to continue was the Unite for Change program, because it focused on that epidemiological approach to violence prevention. In fact, we had relied heavily on Dr. Gary Slotkin, the founder of Cure Violence, who provided some training to the Peace Management Initiative in Jamaica, and which initiative used to get significant funding from the Ministry of National Security, although that has dried up in recent times. But I would commend to the government that in designing this program, that they utilize to the extent the expertise and the training already took place of the violence interrupters under the umbrella of the Peace Management Initiative. And they're not starting from scratch to see whether some of that funding could be channeled to restart that process, because there are scores of people who were trained in the Kingston and St. Andrew area, in St. Catherine North and South, and in St. James. And I think it would be easier to restart those, restart that initiative, or refund the Peace Management Initiative rather than start all over from scratch. The £15 million is welcomed. Over 6 years, that works out at about $400 million per year. And it is a start, but it is small. So the government needs, out of its national security budget or other ministry budgets, Ministry of National Security, we have the first supplementary estimates here, $100 billion. So you see that 400 million in the scheme of things is a relatively small amount. So we need to support that, because, not because I object, but because I agree with the statements made that lack of investment has allowed crime and violence to remain one of the biggest threats to Jamaica's development and the welfare of our people. You will recall in my first contribution to our State of the Nation debate here, I pointed out that that year, I'm going to ask a question, I'm laying a foundation.
I was wondering if that is the question. No, I thought that if you will recall was the question. So I was going to leave.
Yes, but you know, the convention is that a designated responder from the opposition can say a few words before asking questions. So, but you will recall, Mr. President, that I pointed out in my first contribution to a State of the Nation debate here that a geographic area of about 1% of Jamaica in Kingston and southern St. Andrew generated about 33% of murders and 37% or thereabout of shootings in that particular year where I made a contribution. And an investment in those communities that are generating a disproportionate amount of violent crime would be a great investment for this country and for its future. So we support it, and we ask for more. And specifically, in terms of closing with a specific question, Minister, can you say of the, well, let me just back up. Can you say at what stage is the design of the program to execute this partnership, this violence prevention partnership, and what roles specifically are envisioned for local agencies like the PMI? And the second question is, when it comes to the monitoring and evaluation, we talk about, we're putting emphasis on evidence-based. And I can tell you from experience, not in this administration or in our administration, but over 2 decades of running citizen security and justice programs, part of the challenge has been the post-project evaluation. We're spending hundreds of millions, billions of these, and the monitoring and evaluation reports have always fallen short of really informing future policy. So if you could speak to what is provided within this program for those 2 elements.
Thank you, Mr. President. That is the very point. So, as you would be well aware, this government has invested more in national security during our tenure than had been done for significant periods preceding our taking office in 2016. So we're well aware of the need that what is being provided by the UK under this program is not sufficient. And we are committed to ensuring that funding this softer side of national security in terms of violence prevention and community interventions is absolutely critical, which is why we have the concepts of the school-based inter-school programs, which is looking at 135 schools, as well as the unattached youth program, which deals with the 18 to 25 grouping, and then deals with the other groupings of stakeholders that affect how it is that, that communities can mount their resources, or rather mount their desire for safer communities together with the government's interventions along other paths. We know it's multifaceted, we know it's cross-cutting in many ways. So that is not only acknowledged, but we have been acting in that regard. But you would also be aware that the very point which you made in leading into your question, that the actual evaluation has been poor. And that has been poor because the baseline information has been deficient, and the monitoring processes that were in place were also significantly deficient where they even existed. So this program, a large part of it, let me not say large, but a significant component of it, is to ensure that there is proper baselining for social intervention programs, for violence prevention programs, that the monitoring and evaluation programming and design is sound. And again, as I spoke to earlier, it is scalable and replicable so that it not only will work here, but can be looked at to be adopted with some adaptation in other countries having significant issues with community violence, with high levels of violence. I cannot go into the details of the national security programming and design because Minister Chang will do that in short order. But in respect of the focus on baselining, monitoring, and evaluation, I will tell you that that's a significant component of this. And how that works, I think, will be significant for how it is that social intervention is pursued going forward. The concept of violence interrupters has not been lost, but again, we have had more than one Minister of National Security that has expressed concerns about how that program and how the PMI operated before. Not that there are not good elements, but it was not felt to be delivering the best use of funds for what it was costing the government. And that is why there has been redesign underway. And that is why we're ensuring that going forward we're building on a sound and evidence-based platform. So we will be addressing that, and I'm quite sure there'll be opportunities for further discussion in that regard with the relevant minister. So.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Brown.
Yes, President. Thank you. There's an 11-page statement, and there are reports recently of an attack on the consulate of Jamaica in Haiti. There's no mention of that in this 11-page statement. And as one of the minister is minded to update us as to whether that's fake news or the attack did take place and what is the current situation. And the second question is whether or not the response of the stakeholders are taking into account the 2008 charge to the region and to the world by David Rudder, Haiti. I'm sorry. One day we'll turn our heads and restore your glory. Is that the objective of these meetings, to fulfill David Rudder's call made in 2008?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister.
Mr. President, I must admit that it's the matter of the attack on on the compound at which our consulate is located could have been addressed, but I have addressed it publicly by way of video, by way of interviews with all of the major media houses, and it has been carried widely. So I didn't anticipate that it would have been an update of which the Senate would be unaware. But I can, for the record, state for members' notice, and of course for the record, that earlier this week there was an attack overnight I believe it was on the night of the 12th of June, on Sun Auto, which is the car dealership owned by the Honorary Consul of Haiti, of Jamaica to Haiti, and it is the location of the honorary consulate. But it is not a separate building on the compound. It is operated out of the premises. It is a premises which has been attacked previously. Criminality is high, and businesses have been attacked in that area and across the entire Port-au-Prince. Our intelligence at last report from the Honorary Consul, or I believe that last report from him was Wednesday, as at Wednesday. There was no reason, and also based on the intelligence conducted by our CDS, to connect the attack on the premises with the fact of Jamaica's holding of the meeting. We do continue to monitor circumstances. As I shared with the public before, sadly, 6 security guards were kidnapped from the premises. They were overtaken by more than 40 gunmen by way of report. 3 managed to escape, and 3 are, so far as we understand, still not returned. So investigations continue in that regard, and we remain in a monitoring stance of information available. We remain in contact with the Honorary Consul. We have suspended services for obvious reasons. The dealership itself is shut down. And accordingly, we express, and I express once more, our sympathies to Mr. Rouzier and his family, to the employees of that entity. They have 128 employees. They are Haitian. Again, for those who don't follow some of the details of the different types of consulates which exist, or diplomatic missions which exist, the consulate is voluntary. The Honorary Consul is a voluntary position. It is not paid. It is not staffed by Jamaicans. It's staffed by Haitians. And again, as I say, we continue to express our sympathies and to hope for the safe return of the 3 missing security guards. And of course, we'll continue to remain close to any intelligence that changes how it is that this matter is being viewed. We have, of course, also received the sympathies and regrets from the Prime Minister of Haiti, from his Foreign Minister, and of course from stakeholders who were present in Kingston at the time when the attack took place. Regarding the response of stakeholders, that has been a mix, because of course the issues which are being dealt with are complex, they are fraught, they're deeply emotional, and they're deep-seated, and have been of some long standing. But it was clear that generally, even those who felt initially, why do we have to leave Haiti to find solutions for Haiti, at the end of these Kingston talks, felt that it was good that they had been here. Some who were not able to make it regret that they were not present, and while some expressed disappointment at not having reached agreement, which, as I said earlier, appeared at a point to be likely to have a breakthrough, there were breakthroughs that have taken the matter much further than it was when they all arrived here on Sunday evening, or rather on Saturday evening. And it is hoped that those gains can be harvested. As to whether this is a call to David Rudder, I will say that Mr. Rudder was not a part of our discussions leading up to preparation. But in terms of the sentiment that Jamaica stands ready and CARICOM stands ready to partner with our Haitian brothers and sisters to indeed return that beautiful country, the first Black Republic, the first independent Black Republic in the world, with whom Jamaica feels connection from that Dottie Bookman come right up to now. How many Haitian prime ministers and presidents have found sanctuary here in Jamaica at different times. We continue to work with them. as best as possible to support their development of Haitian-led and owned solutions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just to say that I had the privilege of representing the Prime Minister at President Moise's installation and met the staff of the Jamaican Honorary Consul and found them to be extremely useful and helpful. So I trust that that matter will in due course resolve itself. Announcements?
Laid on the table of the Senate today are the following. Annual report for the Tourism Product Development Company Limited for the financial year 2019-2020. The Chief Justice's annual statistics report for the Parish Courts of Jamaica for the year 2020, 2021, and 2022. First supplementary estimates for the financial year 2023-2024 and its amendment. The Integrity Commission's report of investigation concerning allegations of impropriety, irregularities, and conflicts of interest at the Factories Corporation of Jamaica Limited. The Integrity Commission's report of investigation concerning allegations of conflict of interest and breaches of Government of Jamaica staff orders and or germane policies at the Bureau of Standards. Integrity Commission's addendum to the Special Report of Investigation into allegations concerning acts of impropriety, irregularity, and corruption in the issuance of firearm user licenses to persons of questionable character. Annual report of the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority for the financial year ended March 31, 2019. Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Local Government and Community Development Annual Performance Report for 2022-2023. Report of the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission, the Reform of Education in Jamaica 2021. Ministry paper numbers 50 to 52, entitled the Cabinet Agenda Issues, dated January 16, 23, and 30 of 2023, respectively. And Ministry paper numbers 53 to 56 of 2022, entitled Cabinet Agenda Issues, dated February 6, 13, 20, and 27 of 2023, respectively. Ministry paper numbers 57 to 60 of 2023, entitled Cabinet Agenda Issues, dated March 6, 13, 20, and 27, respectively. The Court of Appeal Annual Report for the year 2021 and 2022. The Auditor General's Department certified appropriation accounts for head 46,000 recurrent and 46,000 C capital for the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport for the year 2020-2021. Head 19,000 recurrent capital A and capital B for the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation for the year 2018-2019. The Conch Export Levy, Rate of Levy Order 2023, and its resolution under the Conch Export Levy Act. The Independent Commission of Investigation's quarterly report on compliance with INDECOM recommendations from the Department of Correctional Services for the period January to March 2023. Annual report of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation for the financial year 2020-2021, and the Accountant General's Department financial statements of the Consolidated Fund for the year ended March 31, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. In the interest of transparency and in keeping with my policy of, to the best of my capacity and ability, keeping the people of the country informed, I wish to bring the following matter to the attention of the Senate. In my capacity as President of the Senate, I received a report of investigations from the Integrity Commission on the cover of a letter dated May 31, 2023, jointly addressed to the Speaker of the House of Representatives for tabling in the Senate. The report entitled Concerning Allegations of Conflict of Interest, Corruption and Irregularities in relation to the acquisition of shares in First Rock Capital Holding Limited by the Airports Authority of Jamaica, AAJ, and Norman Manley International Airports Limited, NMI.
Your voice, I'm not hearing you clearly, sir.
You're not? You did not hear from where? Let me start again. I apologize because I had moved to the left to read the designation of the report. In my capacity as President of the Senate, I received a report of investigation from the Integrity Commission on the cover of a letter dated May 31, 2023, jointly addressed to the Speaker of the House of Representatives for tabling in the Senate. The report of investigation is designated Concerning Allegations of Conflict of Interest, Corruption, and Irregularities in relation to the acquisition of shares in First Rock Capital Holding Limited by the Airports Authority of Jamaica, AAJ, and the Norman Manley International Airports Limited, NMIAL, dated May 2023. Subsequent to the receipt of this document, the Clerk of the House received correspondence dated June 8, 2023 from the Integrity Commission requesting the return of the aforementioned report, which had been received by the Parliament and processed through the registry of the Parliament. In response, the Clerk, through correspondence dated June 8, 2023, indicated to the Integrity Commission that copies of the report had been passed to the respective presiding officers for review and tabling and could not be returned at that time. Afterwards, the Integrity Commission sent further correspondence dated the 9th of June 2023, stating that the Chairman of the Commission wished to recall the report and to confirm a matter before it was tabled. The Clerk of the House, through a letter dated 12/2023, indicated that the Speaker of the House had advised that the report sent to her would be returned. And indeed, I believe that the report, which was in the hands of the Clerk, had or has been returned. I wish to just indicate to the members of the Senate that I await further and better particulars as to the way forward. Thank you very much. Bills brought from the Honourable House of Representatives.
Mr. President, just one clarification. You also returned your copy of the said report?
No.
So in the circumstances, where does that leave? It has neither been tabled nor has it been returned. I think it's in a, let me just say it's in an undesirable state.
Yes, but if you listen to the last phrase that I used, your colleague sitting to your left would be able to explain it to you. I await further and better particulars. It is a phrase that is oft used in the civil law to indicate that I am in the process of making a decision as to how to proceed. Bills brought from the Honourable House of Representatives.
To the Honourable Senate, the following is a message from the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I have the honour to advise the Honourable Senate that on the 7th day of June 2023, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Copyright Act was passed in the House of Representatives without amendment. Signed, Marisa Dalrympe Philibert, CD MP, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions. I'm sorry.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the Senate thank His Excellency the Governor-General for his gracious speech delivered to both Houses of Parliament on February 14 this year, approve the plans and programs outlined in his speech, and place on record its appreciation of the performance of the government during the just concluded financial year. I further beg to give notice, sir, that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to commence debate on this motion.
Thank you, Senator Fitzhenley.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate, I will move the following motion. Whereas subsection 1F1 of section 41 of the Constitution of Jamaica requires a member of this Honourable Senate to vacate his seat if he becomes a party to any contract with the Government of Jamaica for or on account of the public service. And whereas Senator Damian Crawford is a businessman who from time to time may enter into contracts with the Government of Jamaica and its agencies, be it resolved that this Honourable Senate, pursuant to subsection 1F1 of section 41 of the Constitution, and in recognition of him having disclosed his interest, exempt the said senator from vacating his seat for the reasons aforesaid. Mr. President, I further beg to give notice that, if he asks me nicely, at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Thank you very much, Minister. Questions and answers to questions. This does not apply to you, Member of Parliament Montague. Motions that be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sitting of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained. Public business.
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
You should have heard the question. Those in favour?
Mr. President, I now move that the motion, notice of which I gave, now be approved.
You should have heard. Those in favour? Against?
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to commence the State of the Nation debate, notice of which I gave earlier.
Members should have heard the question eloquently put, I might add. Those in favour? Against? Thank you, Senator Apka Fitzhenley. Normally when a new bowler goes up to the crease, he would get an ovation from...
Mr. President, I've assumed my feet, sir.
Senator Apka-Fitzenley, you are recognized by
Thank you, sir.
the President.
I have, well, permission to speak from a seat other than the one assigned to me, sir.
Very well.
I've assumed my feet to open the State of the Nation debate at a time that is most important to the future of our country. This, sir, is my maiden contribution to the Jamaican Parliament concerning substantive issues of the day. I wish to reiterate my appreciation to our Prime Minister for displaying confidence in me, as evidenced by my being here in Gordon House. As my former colleagues in the media, sir, they have said that at 34, I'm the youngest currently serving on this side. So, Senator Sinclair, I think that's a kind thing to say. So, I think it's a kind thing to say. So, I'm going to take their word for it. What I can say, though, is that my being here is evidence that we have a modern-day leader and head of the Jamaican executive who is willing to give young people a chance to play our part in an important area of nation building. After over a decade, sir, in one space and taking nearly 2 years to consider the nature of my contribution to country, it is good to be back in the workspace, albeit in a different field. And I'll tell you what, during my time off, I had discussions with Jamaicans from all walks of life about the current state and future of our country. I've also listened to the captains of industry. I've also had time to have conversation with our Prime Minister, and I can say this. It is good that at a crucial time in its existence, our nation has an up-to-the-time leader who is seized of the complex issues facing our globe. One who has an undying love for the Jamaican people, coupled with a perhaps unmatched work ethic, and is persistent in ensuring that those who do not have it easy, whether young, middle-aged, or old, that practical policies are in place to ensure that their burdens are made lighter. As I contemplate the state of the nation and assess the political space, I know that there are those who have aspired to positions of leadership, sir. And the positions they take appear not to be embedded in principle, but more expediency and ostensibly a desperate lunge for power. But I tell you what, I can assure our country, my generation in particular, that when D-Day comes around again, there can be no doubt that our Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, is best equipped to continue leading our country in these important times. Allow me to express thanks to my family who continue to give support, in particular my dear Nicole and our son Christian. Christian is too young to be in the Parliament. I note the presence of the Member of Parliament for West St. Mary, and I note that the Parliament, well, the Constitution does not recognize political parties, but he is in fact the chairman of my side. Thank you for your presence, sir, and I appreciate the guidance since my entrance into the political arena. I see you're in good company. I also note the presence of former MP Sharon Hay Webster. Mr. President, I tell you this, a lot of people in my generation do not know that when the era-defining battles were being fought, when one side wanted to lead this country along a path of socialism and communism, that you, sir, along with the most honorable Edward Seaga, at great political and personal cost, were very much at the vanguard of the fight to ensure that where there was an intent to take away a man or woman's right to accumulate resources as they see fit and share among themselves and their families, that such moves were firmly, fiercely, and successfully resisted. These battles fought over time have implications for freedoms we enjoy today, and therefore I do not engage in perfunctory speech or hollow encomiums when I invite the Hansard to note that we recognize your vital contribution over the years and how you persisted, even when it was not considered politically popular to be associated with this side. I am grateful to our government Senate leader, who was most kind in her welcome. And, you know, I follow current affairs, everybody knows that, and I know that there are members of the Boys Club in Jamaica and overseas who have arrogated unto themselves the title of Chief Detractor in connection with our Senate leader. But I say this, due to the stability achieved under her watch in terms of how our country is perceived in the international arena, where the Jamaican star continues to shine with increasing luminosity, I am confident that fair-minded Jamaicans will conclude that by virtue of performance in an admittedly challenging geopolitical environment, indeed the first woman to have served Jamaica in the post is well on her way to being the most consequential, in a positive manner, foreign affairs and foreign trade minister to have served this country. I'd like to thank my colleagues who have been generous in their welcome, and in particular as well, I want to thank the parliamentary staff, our clerk, Valerie Curtis, and our head of corporate communications, Tashana Soil, who make working in this parliament a very pleasant experience for us all. On the occasion of my being sworn, Mr. President, awareness of the affluction of time had caused it to flee my memory to thank the opposition Senate leader for his kind comments. And I say to members of that side, though I am certain that the debates will be rigorous and perhaps heated at times, I'm confident in our ability as parliamentarians to ensure that at most times civility is allowed to reign and the interests of our country is given utmost priority. Colleagues, our country is approaching 61 years old. And I tell you what, we have made many mistakes, but we have gotten a lot right. In assessing the state of the nation, I will comment on a few key areas, including the economy, national security, labor, and justice. I'll also comment on a few narratives, then offer a synopsis on how we have done as a nation and where this administration is taking the country as we govern with compassion and a conscience and are taking concrete steps to further advance Jamaica towards the attainable goal of prosperity for all. On the matter of the economy, I'm optimistic, colleagues, about the future of Jamaica's economy. The latest figures suggest that in the near future, we will see additional and notable expansion. In the January to March quarter of this year, the economy grew by 2.7% when compared to a similar phase last year, an indication that we are heading in the right direction. The state of the nation is such that the Jamaican economy has been managed so well by this administration that we have presided over 8 consecutive quarters of positive expansion. And unlike what often transpired when the former PNP administration was in office, we have not levied any new taxes on the backs of the Jamaican people for 8 consecutive years. But the message is this: despite the economy being skillfully navigated to reasonably safe waters, the Jamaican people can be assured that the government of Prime Minister Andrew Holness is seized of the fact that there is a crucial need for more of the Jamaican masses to benefit directly from gains being made as the economy continues to expand. And we're making moves in this regard. Of course, our finance minister, our prime minister, will supply additional particulars in the future. But there are already signs that this administration is aware of difficulties being faced by sections of the masses, and we're taking steps to address them. Among those indicators are the fact that effective this month, the national minimum wage will be increased from $9,000 to $13,000 per week. That comes into effect this month. The largest increase. The largest increase sanctioned by this administration. That's the largest in 2 decades. A sign of our commitment to the goal of easing the burden on the Jamaican people and achieving prosperity for all. And colleagues, I don't for a moment dismiss the issue of inflation. But, you know, when the minimum wage increase was announced, a woman in the supermarket essentially said to me, it could be more because prices have gone up over 20 years, but at least she'll be able to put more in the trolley for her family, her children included. And that's what this administration is about, recognizing that we operate in a tight fiscal space where there are limitations, but we are taking important steps in the right direction towards putting more money in the pockets of our people, in particular, society's most vulnerable. On the issue of putting more money into the pockets of the Jamaican people, another indicator that this administration is seized of the need to increase the purchasing power of the Jamaican people are the words, "It will be done, it will be done." Words uttered on March 7 this year by Prime Minister Holness in the Parliament, as our Finance Minister commented on the issue of a potential further adjustment downwards in the amount of income tax which low to middle income Jamaicans are asked to pay. I recall I was in the social media space on Twitter, and a resident of Southeast St. Anne, Kerry Morgan, operates an account, Patriotic Jamaican, a good account to follow. She tweeted, "PM Holness's comments give me hope. It will be done. It will be done." And the public, sir, can have confidence in the words of this Prime Minister, because it was his administration that, while in opposition, created the 1.5 income tax break plan and put it in place, putting more money into the pockets of, at minimum, 100,000 Jamaicans. And Senator Crawford, I tell you what, this was done despite a lot of noise from the then administration of the day saying can't be done, couldn't be achieved. Yes? Vocal noises. I recall even some of the PNP surrogates, Ralston Hyman, Joseph M. Matalan, calling it distortionary and inequitable, saying it couldn't be done. Well, this side, under the leadership of Prime Minister Holness, with the practical skills of then Finance Minister Audley Shaw, got it done. And I tell you what, Senator Brown, I tell you what.
They were on the front page of that newspaper,
yes,
saying it couldn't be done.
Saying it would mash up the economy. I'll never forget. And I tell you what, Senator Brown, colleagues, that is why when the opposition called a media conference not too long ago and demanded a further adjustment in the income tax arrangement. Yes? They called a media conference and called for it. That current posture and type of politicking can only be best described as a barefaced, hypocritical, and brazen attempt to ostensibly hijack a core policy initiative of this administration. It could as well be interpreted as an attempt to deceive the Jamaican people that the policy is in fact their own. But the state of the nation is such that the memories of the Jamaican people, Senator Brown, their memories are not short. And I trust they will recall which side implemented practical policies and acted in their best interest. Colleagues, further evidence that this side is sensitive to the challenges being faced by the people is the $2.7 billion in additional support, which was announced in the last fiscal year in a bid to give back more to pensioners and put, including people on the PATH program. Additional support of $500 million was announced as well for people who are not on the PATH program but are considered among society's most vulnerable. It is this side which moved to put in place a multi-billion-dollar care package, which was announced by Finance Minister Clark, packages which assisted in keeping people afloat during perhaps the most difficult crisis that this globe has faced in approximately 100 years. And I make this general point. Unlike a former administration, a former People's National Party administration, we are not into the business of tax packages. We are into the business of supplying care packages to those who are in need and making the environment conducive to successful entrepreneurial endeavor, and thereby assisting the Jamaican people to lay a foundation on the path towards prosperity. Colleagues, the drought is upon us, and the 50,000 tanks which are to be handed out over 2 years beginning in July of this year is another sign of this side moving to respond to challenges facing the people. Minister Samiuda and the Prime Minister have worked hard in that regard, even as they put in place policies to ensure that the country on a whole has a more sustainable water supply system. Colleagues, the 137 houses handed out to families in need under the Prime Minister's new social housing program is another example of this administration governing with compassion and a conscience and taking concrete steps towards setting this country on a path towards prosperity. I'm pleased to advise this Parliament that over 520 Jamaicans across 48 constituencies have so far benefited from the program. The program does not discriminate based on who is the MP for the area or the political persuasion of anybody. And this is a very important program geared towards delivering shelter to those in need. And I urge members of the private sector to join forces with the government with a view of doubling the output from the program. I believe a public-private sector initiative in this regard would augur well for the future of our country. Mr. President, it was the late great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who in December of 1964 told an audience on the compound of the University of Oslo that ultimately a great nation is a compassionate one. No individual or nation can be great if it does not have a concern for those who some unfortunately consider to be the least of these. What I have outlined are just a few of a number of strong indicators that this side believes in governance with compassion and a conscience and is sensitive to the vital importance of helping our people including society's most vulnerable, to secure a better outcome for themselves. In contemplating the state of the nation, we cannot ignore the current debate concerning the public sector compensation transformation initiative. The aim of this venture, as articulated by the finance minister, is to bring about a fairer, more transparent, and simpler compensation system. I will be the first to concede that not unlike any effort to transform a system that has been around for many years, it has not been a perfect process. However, I think some soberness can be brought to the debate and some facts put forward. This is the only administration, the only one in the history of Jamaica that has spent over $100 billion of the national budget in order to ensure that the vast majority of public sector workers see the most significant increases that they have seen in a long time. I recall Senator Brown in about 2012, 2014, a friend of mine who was a nurse was earning about $70,000 to $75,000. She took students' loan in order to achieve her degree. She lived in Mona and she had to be battling between whether to pay the rent or to buy groceries or whether to, save bus fares in order to pay her utilities and that sort of thing. Eventually, she migrated to seek a better opportunity. I say that to say it is not insignificant that this administration has doubled the salaries of many nurses, indeed making them among the Caribbean's best paid. The fact that the salaries of, I soon come to that. Yes. The fact that the salaries of public sector maintenance workers and ancillary employees have been doubled are steps in the right direction and an indicator that this side is governing with a conscience. I see the member of... I see where the member of Parliament for South East St. Anne has indicated that the combined salaries of political representatives amount to less than 0.29% of the total budget for salaries. And it's of note that despite the noise made in the public domain, Senator Brown, not one opposition MP, not one councillor has declined the increase, which came after 37 years without an adjustment. Therefore, I tell you what, Mr. President, when an opposition MP tweeted a few years ago, PNP standing for fairness in salaries matter, JLP taking the lion's share, he's not speaking the truth. That's false, not true, patently false. Indeed, Senator Brown, the state of the nation is such that we have an opposition leader who cost the increase but take some of it. Yes? Cost the increase but take 20%. And we have a Prime Minister, we have a PM who has said, we have a Prime Minister who has made the personal sacrifice by saying, I hear the discord, and I want to stand in solidarity with the people who are having a tough time. And hence, I will not accept a cent of the increase. Either you, Senator Morris, could conclude that that's the most noble stance taken by a Prime Minister, the most Honourable Andrew Holness. In contemplating the state of the Jamaican economy, we have to ponder upon where we are coming from. And what is true and what my generation is aware of, painfully so, colleagues, is that the reckless policies of the 1990s of the Percival Patterson administration set this country back many decades. And what's funny is that several who seek to take credit now for the turnaround in the economy were eminent members of the cabinet then when those policies were pursued. Policies were pursued in the 1990s which damaged the Jamaican economy almost beyond repair. Yes, and this after significant expansion under the Siaga administration of the 1980s. In assessing the state of the nation, it's important to accept that similar policies which characterized the 1990s should never be allowed to happen again. And I tell you what as well, this bit of history lesson has posterity and currency now, because, and the Jamaican people must make the connection, because when you hear
Senator Morris.
Yes,
Senator Brown.
the Jamaican people must take note and make the connection and not be fooled by beneficiaries of those policies of the time. Yes, those policies that hurt the Jamaican coffers and heaped pain on the backs of the Jamaican people. They now appear on political platforms now and say, do more for the people. Yes, we must make the connection, because had we done right by the people then, our ability to spend on behalf of the people would be that much more now. And I recall in the phase I alluded to in the 1990s, had someone said to me, Senator Braham, that I'd have spent almost a decade as a newsman. I'd have said absolutely not, because I hated listening to news and current affairs. It was dominated by people suffering, some bemoaning that their family members, big and small businessmen and women, were driven to depression, their savings wiped out. Some committed suicide because of the high interest rate policies of the then PNP administration, and other policies that ripped out the heart of small and medium-sized businesses. Some large entities went under as well. Hundreds and thousands of Jamaicans suffered, and to this day, there has been no accountability. None. But while poor people suffered, and some took their lives due to the socio-economic strain caused by the PNP policies at the time, our country should recall that there are those who increased their resources astronomically, and some of them who were associated with an entity who the then Anti-Corruption Agency, the Office of the Contractor General, says benefited from a highly irregular and improper deal with no evidence of transparency. They got richer, yes, as poor people suffered. And colleagues, there is some irony in the fact that some of these people, they now offer themselves for leadership today. And they boast, I'm sure you have heard it, Mr. President, I don't come to scrape, man a junglist. You know, that's how they boast, yes? A hollow boast.
Senator Brown, don't disturb Mr. President.
Yeah, understand that Senator Brown
I have no doubt that Senator Abka Senley can manage any intervention from Senator Brown. Notwithstanding Senator Brown's new royal blue suit.
I understand the senators need to express themselves, Mr. President. You know, the truth hurts. You know, colleagues, there is some irony in the fact that some of these people who benefited from policies of the time, while the Jamaican people suffered, they boast that man don't come for scrape, or a junglist, a hollow boast that is tantamount to mocking the Jamaican people. But my word to the Jamaican people, near and far, is do not be fooled by political chameleons whose best proclivity is pretending to be what they are not. Don't be fooled. You know, the message to our people, including the masses, is that this administration will not sit on its laurels, but will continue to work hard on your behalf despite the state of the nation being such that the administration has achieved the lowest unemployment rate that has ever been recorded in Jamaica's history. More people have jobs. more people have jobs under the administration of Prime Minister Andrew Holness than at any time in Jamaica's history. We will continue to work hard on your behalf and explore policies to make your lives better, even as we build on having achieved record expansion on a quarterly basis in the Jamaican economy. And despite the fact that the NIR, our US savings account, has touched $4.15 billion US, unprecedented levels, a 38% increase from what it was before COVID-19. This side, colleagues will continue to earnestly work hard for the betterment of the Jamaican people, despite us being firmly on track to achieving the lowest debt in over 20 years. This, Senator Brown, is a far cry away from the trajectory of the PNP FinSac scandal that caused our debt to GDP ratio to spiral from 70 to 110%. And we are seized of the need to do better on behalf of the Jamaican people, despite the fact that the dollar has been stabilized in recent times, thereby ensuring that the purchasing power of the Jamaican people is not significantly diminished, similar to what happened when that side had charge of government. And on the matter of the Jamaican dollar, I want to make a straightforward appeal to some of our partners in the private sector. I don't think it's right that a situation exists where when the dollar devalues or gas prices go up, instantly there's an increase at the pumps or an increase in prices generally. But we have a situation where we have had in recent times where gas prices have been stable, have gone down in many instances. The dollar has been stable, but we can't see a decline in prices. I say to some of our partners in the private sector, I beg you, even as this side is creating the environment for doing business that's conducive to doing business, pass on some of the favorable adjustments to the Jamaican people. I think that's only a fair and a right call. On the matter of energy, Jamaica has grappled with the issue of how best to diversify our energy sources. And I've been following the conversation in the public domain closely, and I wish to declare my support for calls for Jamaica to integrate nuclear energy into the country's energy mix. It is good that conversations have started in this regard at the highest levels of the administration with the International Atomic Energy Agency about using nuclear energy to generate electricity in Jamaica. That's a step in the right direction. I strongly believe, colleagues, we should get it done. Part of the reason, Mr. President, I am hopeful about the future of the Jamaican economy is that the tourism enterprise under the leadership of that patriotic Jamaican son and peerless advocate Edmund Bartlett, supported by an able team, including Delano Seaverite, they continue to do well. The fact is, tourism has rebounded from COVID-19 and is performing at record levels and is for the most part driving the expansion of the Jamaican economy. And I know the Minister and his team are sensitive to the vital importance of moving towards maximizing further local earnings from the sector while ensuring that our farmers, craft vendors and entertainers benefit more and that our tourism workers see a spike in their earnings. I know the Minister and his team are sensitive to the need to achieve this. It's important that we get it done on a larger scale. On the matter of, in closing, concerning the economy, a finding published only days ago by the International Merchandise Trade Board and Statin that in January of this year, exports from Jamaica have grown much stronger when compared to imports is yet another indicator that our economy is moving in the right direction. Regarding the economy, much has been achieved, but there's more to be done. And And I'm encouraged that this administration has been moving to place additional focus on developing an export-led economic expansion strategy. One where we identify areas and industries where we have a competitive advantage. A plan which recognizes that our people are our greatest asset and that a motivated, skilled, and educated labor force working in tandem with the digital innovations of the day are key to getting the engine of the economy moving at a faster pace. On the matter of national security, the latest figures indicate that so far murders year on year are down by 14%, well, approximately 13%. Violent crimes have declined by approximately 16%. I am advised that 12 of 19 police divisions are seeing double-digit decline in murders. And I call on all stakeholders to exercise best efforts to ensure that this decline continues. There's no doubt that reducing crime and violence in a sustainable way is a complex endeavor because it involves tapping into the psyche of a generation of people who know no other way. Their vocation is to do crime and benefit from it. I recall, colleagues, when I was covering some beheadings in Lauriston a few years ago, I got a call from an individual who wanted to know what do macabre and ghoulish mean. He heard it on the news. And I explained that it means death, scariness, and brutality. And he sounded excited. He said, well, a good something that. That's the nature of the problem we're facing, Senator Braham. That's the nature of the problem. Colleagues, there are young men in particular who are intent on creating havoc in this society. And that's why I am of the view that even as we pursue medium to long-term measures, including social intervention, and intervention at the level of the family and the community, we need to turn our deaf ears to a few vocal people whose posture may make people wonder whether they are in fact criminal rights advocates. We must press ahead with short-term measures including amendments to the Bail Act, increased use of mandatory minimum penalties, and pursuit of laws where known violence producers are designated as terrorists and pursued within the constraints of the law. We should continue to give the police support in terms of more resources as they seek to use the anti-gang law to bring these criminal outfits down and ensure that the mayhem is discontinued. Make no bones about it, colleagues. This administration recognizes that it is our prerogative to secure the people of Jamaica, and we're working hard in this regard. I wish to dismiss as false and untrue propaganda from political opportunists who say that there is no anti-crime plan. It's false, not true. I reiterate to this Parliament that Plan Secure Jamaica, which is the country's first holistic plan and the most enduring security program, has been put in place and has long been tabled before this Parliament. And, you know, Senator Bunting, even as we understand the need to seek the guidance of the Lord, one thing this administration will not do is put our hands up and surrender and bawl for divine intervention. We understand that faith without work is dead. And that's why we have made the most unprecedented investment in the national security, protecting the citizens of Jamaica. Plan Secure Jamaica is It's a serious matter we're talking about, Senator Brown. Plan Secure Jamaica is geared towards creating a safe, secure, and cohesive society. The plan has a number of strategic areas, including violence and crime, public order, corruption, and territorial integrity. Some of the key initiatives include transforming the security forces, expansion of the security forces in terms of numbers, improvement in the telecom systems and intelligence gathering, expanded training programs, cybersecurity and intelligence-driven anti-gang operations. Also, the development of a full logistic and planning department in the JCF. I won't delve any further into it today, and I commend the document which is online for our people to have a look at. However, suffice to say, this business that no anti-crime plan exists is not true. It is propaganda being spread by political opportunists, who many of them are seeking to make excuses for their own failings.
Yes, there's some of that.
On the matter of the justice system, we have been seeing some positive gains in this regard. And I think sections of our judiciary are to be applauded for working to achieve better outcomes. However, I cannot help but be of the view that from time to time there are sentences which are handed down which are not acceptable. One such is the 20-year sentence handed down to Davian Bryan, who, according to media publications, could be eligible for parole after 16 years. Bryan raped and abused 2 girls, brutally violated women, terrorized the community, and traumatized much of the Jamaican society. I don't find that sentence acceptable. And even as he is vocal about matters concerning the legislature and the executive, as is his right to be, I'd be interested in hearing the views of Mr. Chief Justice, the Honorable Brian Sykes, on this matter. At minimum, to my mind, the sentencing of Davian Bryan vindicates this administration's preparedness to, where necessary, amend the law and impose mandatory minimum penalties. The state of our nation requires such decisive action by the executive and lawmaking branches of the Jamaican state. It is we who the people expect to protect them and who they propose to hold accountable. The state of the nation is such that misinformation is abound. People are willing to send fake news around in order to cause significant public disorder and major reputational damage, and some merely to bring attention to themselves. Colleagues, today I'm calling for an amendment to the public mischief aspect of the law to take into consideration the digital age and how some people use technology for damaging purposes and to create public disorder. Sometimes you talk to the police and they say that this individual went online and created significant public mischief. A case in point happened in Ocho not too long ago. But they cannot charge that individual under the public mischief law because a key element of that is that a false complaint has to be filed with the police. I'm of the view, Senator Sinclair, that the public mischief law has to be urgently amended to make it fit for purpose, even as we are over 2 decades into the 21st century. Other countries have done it. It's time that we get it done. I also support the call for Jamaica to consider taking legislative steps to outlaw the mischievous use of the new automation in town, artificial intelligence. We need to amend our law to treat the misuse of any similar technology. And even as we contemplate the state of the nation, I think these steps need to be taken, and taken quickly, to secure public order and the good functioning of society, even in the digital space. I note my colleague in the lower house, Dr. Tufton, called for this amendment. I support the call, and I see where some people even criticized Dr. Tufton on social media. But there was no criticism when the Director General of the WHO and you made a similar call. and news emerged that the European Union is urgently taking legislative steps in this regard. Mr. President, on the matter of the anti-corruption fight, I'm aware of various opinion polls which indicate that the majority of the Jamaican people feel that whichever party is in power, that their government is corrupt. And I recall during my formative years listening to scandal after scandal, dogging various PNP administrations, and it appeared to be a situation where, unless a minister's hand was caught in the trough, there would be no accountability. Few people stepped down or were dismissed. Few ministers. But I invite the Jamaican people to consider that this administration is different in this regard, because we have a prime minister, different in this regard because we have a prime minister, Senator Bunting, yes, who has taken a different approach. A prime minister who believes in accountability and swift action where issues of transparency, lack of transparency, or corruption have arisen. There is no time that this prime minister has not acted. And that's an important distinction compared to what existed before. There's a well-known quote that says to oppose corruption in government is the highest obligation of patriotism. Prime Minister Holness has no doubt acquitted himself well in this regard. On the matter of the anti-corruption fight, Mr. President, the Integrity Commission is a very important body, and the institution and its ideals must be supported. I do not equivocate on that. A good functioning Integrity Commission is very important to our democratic process. I don't propose to attack any institution. However, I agree with the Prime Minister that where there are genuine concerns, the space to hear them is this Parliament, the place where the Commission answers to. I think it's important as well that key agents in the Commission appear to be conducting themselves.
I don't mind you addressing the Speaker and Senator Bunting, but please, leave our visitors alone.
I think it's important that key agents in the Commission appear to be conducting themselves. I think it's important, colleagues, that key agents in the Commission appear to be conducting themselves in a just, fair, and impartial manner. And I regret, it actually pains me to inform this Parliament that though I will not be drawn into attacking the institution that's the Integrity Commission, I'm concerned that actions of some of its key agents appear to be falling short of the virtues I just alluded to. For example, to belatedly submit a document to Parliament which ostensibly cleared one former minister of allegedly egregious conduct without taking a similar course concerning another erstwhile minister when facts of the cases are not majorly dissimilar, that does not appear to be just or non-partisan. For the Commission, Senator Bunting,
Focus. Stay focused. Ignore.
I'd govern myself in silence if I were you, because,
Penny section is across the floor. The penny section is across the floor.
If I were you, Senator, I'd govern myself in silence on this matter. I would. I would. For the Commission to submit a document to Parliament.
President, on a point of order, I believe...
1 minute.
Yeah.
Senator Fitzhenley, yes.
I believe the time allotted to opening speakers have expired, and may there be a resolution to extend it if that's the intent. Because I know you have been a stickler, especially when it comes to me, to be bound by time in this speech. And I do not wish an invitation. I do not wish an invitation to be much longer than I need to be.
Senator Bro, what am I seeing?
Yes, the senator's time had run out at 12:42, but you know that I'm particularly lenient when it comes to particular speakers like Senator Bunting. So the question is that the speakers...
Yes, Mr. President, you normally guide us at the start of the State of the Nation for the time allotted. And I know you're quite a stickler to maintaining that. So could you remind us, since you didn't give us that guidance today?
Okay, what I will do, I will correspond with both yourself and the leader and just bring to your attention the rules concerning it. In the normal course of things, the opening and close, I usually give a particular lenient attitude. But I'll remind you. So if I have the motion, we can continue.
All right. On the assumption that the member will continue in the best practices of this House, I'm going to move that his time be extended sufficient for him to complete it, but that he not abuse that generosity.
Members should have heard the question. Those in favor? Senator Fitzhenley, continue, please.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you. I appreciate it. I had made the point that I'm not into the business of attacking the institution that is the Integrity Commission, but we have genuine concerns which we propose to air before this Parliament. For example, for the Commission to submit a document to Parliament which created the spectre of a Jamaican citizen being prosecuted, knowing fully well that the adverse findings would make it in news across the world, but had long been negated in writing by the designated officer within the Commission who is decide on these things. That sort of thing is unjust. And for the Commission to delay by 2 days, publication of its own document which indicated that the proposed prosecution lacked basis, was bereft of a credible plinth, that action is unfair and unjust. And for the executive director of the Commission, a man who loves to speak about the appearance of impartiality and natural justice, to republish an article which said the Jamaican citizen is under anti-corruption scrutiny, when the director would have fully well known that a document prepared many weeks ago by the Commission exonerated the citizen. That conduct is not acceptable. And it will make people wonder, that's my concern, sir. It will make people wonder whether malice is at play. And Senator Longmore, the point I'm making is that it does not matter whether that Jamaican citizen is the Member of Parliament for West Central St. Andrew and the Prime Minister of Jamaica. I put it to the Senate and to the country. Yes, I put it to the Senate and the country and fair-minded Jamaicans that no citizen, regardless of their political leaning or station in life, should be subjected to such unjust treatment. And you know what? And the concerns are not unique to this side. Though he appears to have gone back to saying what he believes is popular, the opposition leader Mark Golding did say not too long ago, and I quote, "The Integrity Commission does not always put all pertinent facts in their submissions, and that can cause unfairness and injustice when critical elements which help inform their decisions are not included and seem to be deliberately omitted. those are the things Mark Golding says that the Commission needs to shape up and fix. I believe those comments by the opposition leader merit consideration. And I tell you what, I served for over a decade in another space where I had to bring information to the Jamaican people. I have never had to apologize for misinformation, and I have never been sued, much less sued successfully. And that's because there's a process I abide by in verifying credible information. And I'm concerned about a matter concerning the Commission. I am told that there are people within the Commission who
Senator Brown, stop interfering.
No, I was in university. Didn't do it. Yes. I was told that there are people within the Commission who the highest extent of their training is the civil law, but they are seeking to cajole others who have extensive expertise in the criminal law to take action against senior members of this side, despite no evidence suggesting any culpability. And I'm told that when the view is expressed by those who are aware of the criminal law, that the potential issues do not reach the standard of an admin breach, the heckling continues, as attempts are being made by some key agents to unjustly have actions taken against this side. And I'm told that people in the Commission have been brought to tears by snide comments made by others merely because they are
President, just on a point of order.
Senator Fitzhenley.
We have a position in the Senate not to cast improper motive on members. And I think that should be extended to the commissions of Parliament, because what I'm hearing,
Senator Brown.
what I'm hearing, President,
Brown.
is that
Senator
is
Brown.
an aspersion on
Senator
the commission,
Brown.
that the commission
Senator
is
Brown.
partisan.
Senator Brown,
Yes.
that is not a point of order, you know. You will have one minute, please. Senator Sinclair. Senator Sinclair, please. I know you have aspirations, but please wait. Senator Brown, I understand. You're going to have a chance to rebut.
Yeah,
It's not a point of order.
It may not be a point of order, but
Well,
President,
no, but you rise
my
and say
biggest
point of
concern
order. You can't say, come
is
on.
that the aspersion that the aspersion that the Integrity
Fitzhenley.
Commission is partisan
Senator
is
Fitzhenley.
unworthy. It's unworthy to be said in this
Senator
past.
Brown. Senator Fitzhenley, continue, please. Yeah, but you have an opportunity to say that, you know. Okay.
What you have ruled on your own comment.
Let's go. Senator Fitzhenley, continue, please.
I am really making a point about fairness and equity and being treated with the such. And you know, as a man who is not unfamiliar with the criminal courts, I think Senator Brown would appreciate the point I'm making. Senator Brown, I'm making a point about fairness and equity before the system. And I think as a man, who is familiar with the courts, you would appreciate the point I'm making. Fairness and equity. What I'm doing now, colleagues, I invite the Parliament to investigate this, what I'm told is a toxic culture that has developed within the Integrity Commission. I make that call today, and I don't do so lightly. I do it based on information which I believe to be credible. And I will not resile from that call. Our country will recall exchanges in the public domain between an erstwhile Officer of the Contractor General and the Office of the DPP, where proposals were made for criminal charges, but the ODPP either said more work is needed, the evidence supplied is not sufficient, or what has been identified amounts to an admin breach only. I gather that sort of byplay has resurfaced. And while I'm at it, Mr. President, I call for the Integrity Commission law to be amended to bar former politically exposed people from being appointed to any office within the Integrity Commission. It is not right that a senior officer within the Commission was not too long ago a senior advisor to a prominent member of the opposition side. And I'm not casting aspersions on anybody. However, that sort of arrangement has a pungent odor emanating therefrom. It's not sustainable. I want to make a quick comment as I approach the close of my presentation about the state of media in this country. I know the recent major decline that was applied to Jamaica in terms of the Press Freedom Index. And yes, there are challenges and have been incidents in the past which should not have happened. I can speak to a few of those. But in my view, such a steep decline was not merited. It's not an accurate depiction about the state of affairs in Jamaica. However, again, I did my checks, and I was told that our friends in the international community who assess these things can only operate based on what was said to them. And I am of the view that they were misled. As a matter of fact, I was told that there was a stakeholder who, to the astonishment of some of my former colleagues, presented a false picture about the media landscape and interactions with this side. Stakeholders must understand, sir, that when you seek to speak negatively about your country and the information is false, it might achieve temporary partisan talking points for one side, but that, sir, is a Pyrrhic victory, and it's a form of unpatriotic behavior. The truth is, we have many hard-working media workers, including newsmen and women, producers, cameramen, editors, who could do with an increase in their remuneration, but they are doing well in a largely safe environment which is free of political interference. That's the truth. In closing, colleagues, in closing, our people are a unique people, and there's no doubt that we're a blessed country. Not only do we have a comparative advantage in terms of much of our natural assets, I genuinely believe that so many of our people, whether from Moran Point to Negril Point, whether in the hills of East Rural St. Andrew or the plains of Boscobel in West St. Mary, by virtue of their daily activities as they ensure their sustenance and greet their neighbors with a smile and look out for each other's offsprings, they represent the very best of Jamaica. And anywhere we go in the world and connect with a Jamaican, it's usually a special moment. We can be sure that we are connecting with a kindred spirit. We are not just a country of sun, sand, and sea. We are the country where the likes of Marley, Tosh, Miss Lou, Fraser Price, Chris Gale, George Headley, Merlin Ottey, and Usain Bolt have used a combination of discipline and talent to excel on the world stage. We have produced some of the very best in sports, music, and the performing arts. We have a lot to be proud of as a country, and there is much more to come. I said, Mr. President, on the occasion of my appointment, that I am bullish about the future of Jamaica. A former Prime Minister of ours once said, and I paraphrase, "I'm certain that there's nothing flawed about Jamaica that cannot be adjusted and fixed by that which is right and beautiful about our country." True words, sir, words upon which I cannot readily add to in a manner that increases their profundity. And even as this administration of Prime Minister Andrew Michael Holness works day and night to ensure prosperity for the Jamaican people, I have an abiding belief in the spirit and determination of our people and their ability to overcome and to shine. And I'm certain our people will recall the prescriptions of the good book and find motivation and solace, for it says, "Yet thy glory I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. We shall prosper, for his compassion never fails." Mr. President, thank you, sir. God bless you, and may God bless Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Senator Fitzhenley. Leader.
Mr. President, there should, after a delivery such as that, there should be no further business done. And accordingly, accordingly, Mr. President, there is no further business anticipated for this day. I want to congratulate our new member for his maiden delivery. And indeed, although it might be a bit of a stretch of a cricket analogy, but that extend the hope that he has rolled the pitch for an excellent State of the Nation debate. In that context, Mr. President, I ask that the debate on the State of the Nation be suspended and that the Senate similarly be adjourned for a date to be fixed.
The first motion put is that the State of the Nation debate be suspended for a date to be fixed. Certainly look forward to its continuation. So those in favor? Aye. Against? The second is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. But I believe that Senator Sapphire Longmore has an intervention at this time. The motion for an adjournment. Yes, precisely.
On the motion for adjournment, I rise to recognize an issue of national importance. Mr. President, firstly, congratulations to my colleague on his maiden presentation. Mr. President, we are all taken aback as a nation and individually by the recent events and acts of violence against our children. I will not refer to any in particular at this point in time, but needless to say that we're all suffering the pain of the families that have lost their little loved ones to, the only way I can describe it, to inhumane animals within our society. Our sincere condolences to those who are affected and their loved ones. Mr. President, I found it necessary to bring this to our attention at this time because of the amount of requests that I have been getting.
Senator Longmore, you can't, don't sit. You know, I know that you are trying to be as sensitive as possible, but I think that there is nothing wrong in you identifying the murder of the young child, Daniela Rowe, by name, because you are aware that the matter is presented before the court, or ought to be before the court, or is being investigated, I should say. So, but at the same time, to mention her and to bring the attention of the Senate to her demise is not inappropriate at this time.
Thank you for that guidance and intervention, Mr. President. Yes, it is little Daniel that spurred my intervention at this time. And to her mother, her father, her family members, her little classmates, the school that is in shock, I offer sincere condolences, and I think I speak on all of us, on behalf of all of us who are here, that to me, there is no level of justice that can compensate for what they must be experiencing. Mr. President, the act of this nature to have occurred on the compound, or she having been removed from the compound of a school, a place that is supposed to be of safety, of guided development, of protection, that has been invaded, hits to the core on a level that we never imagined possible. It is a parent's worst nightmare that has materialized. And so I urge us as a nation to put increased vigilance and attention to our schools and our compounds. Remain keen with the eye. Alert your children to the dangers that lurk in their innocent lives. The authorities are looking at this time. The Minister, Favour Williams, has indicated the provision of CCTVs, cameras for some of our schools. This cannot happen too early for me, because we must draw a line for our young people at this point to say, absolutely not will this be tolerated. Absolutely not do we want to see another circumstance such as this. Mr. President, the individual trauma and pain compares also to the group trauma and pain that the classmates and the community of little Daniel must be feeling. I say to them, as they go through their stages of grief, seek solace and try to find purpose through your pain. Seek the understanding that there are some things that we cannot explain the reasoning behind, but we must find the strength to move forward. We must find the strength to move forward in a way that brings justice and a sense of reasoning behind her loss. Mr. President, mental health care is on everybody's mind. And what this has brought to fore is the need, and sad to say, is the need for a mobile response unit in these circumstances. We're having too much. The demand is great, and the response needs to be urgent. And so I am making the call for this on this floor of the Senate at this time. A mobile unit that can respond to these circumstances, where we can go in with the adequately trained staff to see to what needs to be done in these moments, to have the follow-up, to ensure that the ripple effect of this trauma does not hurt someone else, as it is known to do. Mr. President, I assure us, my colleague spoke of the breakdown of the family and what permeates in our society. The issues of poor communication and conflict resolution, whatever is behind all of this, it is little Daniel who has suffered the grave consequence. Take some time to try and understand what somebody else is saying. If you have a disagreement, recognize that you don't have to get violent. Recognize that there are more peaceful ways to resolve your differences. Don't take it out on someone who is innocent. I only take solace that it is only possible that someone of that level of naivety has transcended to a space that we only can hope for ourselves. I remind us of the emergency numbers for mental health care at this time. 1888 New Life, 211 for child abuse and child trauma, You Matter for the teenagers, and any health center or clinic or emergency room, if it is that overwhelming. I thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Longmore, may I just thank you very much for that intervention, which was sober and put us in mind of the necessity to have this sort of intervention at every level. You have, over the years, repeatedly referred us to this need that exists in the society, and I thank you very much. Yeah, I'll make that appeal at the end of. Senator Crawford.
Is still the name, sir.
I haven't seen you know that I really. Anyway, we haven't seen you for such a long time, but I have not forgotten your name. So I recognize you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would firstly like to thank Senator Longmore for having raised the issue in this House, and also express my gratitude to the members of both sides in the lower house who was clear that on this issue there is no political divide. The murder of a 8-year-old, in this case Daniel Rowe, and this is the latest of what we have seen to be a mushrooming of violence against children, and even more so a mushrooming of violence that results in death against our children. And while the society immediately moves to what is reasonable punishment, I think lawmakers must move to what is the likely steps for prevention of future actions such as these. To this extent, sir, I would like to put forward to the government for consideration some proposal as to the general security of the society and by extension children, but also specific proposals as it relates to the school circumstance and security within schools, on the virtue that this happened at a school, but also on the reality that our children are consumed approximately 70% of their days in schools. On a general circumstance, I believe it is necessary for us to move swiftly for all government buildings to have CCTV connected to the Jamaica Eye. This is the second time that we're making this call, but the evidence that we have received is due to CCTV. But if it is that all government entities, including schools, had camera systems, then that might not only serve to provide evidence, but might serve as a deterrent if sufficiently promoted, that the likelihood of being seen, and by extension the likelihood of being caught, will be increased. I pray that we don't only go to the ground zero being this particular school and leave all the other schools exposed for the probability of a repeat of this issue. Secondly, for the security of the most vulnerable and our children in particular, we believe that we need to go immediately to a situation of maintaining the relic buildings and also of imposing upon persons owning lands that have been left for bushing to immediately take proper steps to make those areas not be housing many criminals and criminal activities. We also believe that it is necessary that the police force be given what is, Senator Bunting would always say, a force multiplier, sufficient vehicles. And not only to have sufficient vehicles in terms of cars and bikes, but also that the period that we know students are in transportation, that those areas are heavily policed, and that it gives the police an ease of response within those particular areas. One of the negatives we have is that we don't have sufficient zoning within our society. And so we have schools almost everywhere to facilitate people having lived everywhere. But if we have this force multiplier of increased vehicles and a dedication from the police force to ensure the flooding of coverage within that 2 to 4 period that students are moving, it becomes even more a deterrent for negatives against our children within that space. The other thing we would love to ask for is for the pickup, and I heard the Minister of Education actually speak to this, and I must also congratulate her for being quick in saying some of these things. While I would say not extensive enough, but she has been quick, is to have a policy for pickup. And this policy for pickup can only be Jamaica specific because there are realities within Jamaica that we have not sufficiently considered. One thing that comes to the forefront each time we have a tragedy is the family structure. 47% of our children have a single parent experience. That means that 47% of our children have a 50% less likelihood that there's an adult to act on their behalf, including pick them up. And so that becomes more and more difficult. So you see, especially within the lower income brackets, that children are being taken home by other children are going home on their own. So when you have a pickup policy, the pickup policy must also consider that there will be children that by design go home on their own. It therefore means that we can use technology to insist that children not being escorted by an adult should have the tracking bracelet that will then indicate to a parent once they come off the desired or designated track that was inputted in this bracelet. Now, I've done this research to see that these bracelets are not expensive. Actually, you can get a tracking bracelet for no more than $8 US. And it will immediately send, you can put the route in your phone and your app, and it immediately sends a text message to the parent once the child goes off that route. Now, if we then further ties it into the Amanda alert, that a parent who then perceives this to be a risk immediately sends a message to a police app, then that response, the police starts to track that tracking unit. We further believe. Oh, yes, and I welcome the new minister. You're hearing me very loudly. Yes, and we can always go down lunchroom and discuss it further. Not everything, but 90% is satisfactory. Additionally, technology can be used for pickup. Further research that we have done have also showed that a person can have a code and a child. And when they go, they press in both the child's code and their code that indicates inside that there's a match for the pickup. But why is it that we have not considered this reality, that schools can also implement paid after-school care? What is the reason why a parent have to hurry from work? And if we have a single parent system, it's even worse because, this parent, and most times single parents are not in, many of our single parents, not most times, I apologize, are not in circumstances that they decide when to leave. So therefore, why is it that our schools can't have a paid aftercare system that don't cause for a parent to now be trying to make all manner of organizations because they can come within the 2 to 5 segment? The school could always have a paid system, and please don't think we're calling on teachers to take this up now because they are already overworked, but there can be a approved aftercare providers that comes on behalf of the schools. This will assist greatly, I believe, to further assist. We also call on communities to expand what they now call the neighborhood watch to more than just neighborhood watch for nights and criminals, but neighborhood watch to be neighborhood pickup, so that you organize yourselves to say, okay, we can organize our transportation system, we can organize an adult to be a volunteer in this period of time, we can organize this pickup from this area. And it's difficult for Jamaica because our schools are so widely separated with quality that nobody just automatically goes to the closest school, because some schools are unlikely to provide the education that you need. But you will find that Portmore will have a lot of people within the space. that this community neighborhood watch, neighborhood pickup can be organized to better assist for how we will get to our children. So while we offer our condolence to Danielle Rowe, her family, her community, the students, the teachers, and we also offer some level of support to the anxiety that the public now feels, because now everybody with a child is saying that could have been my child, and is now taking steps to make sure, if you see the traffic now at 2:30, everybody's making sure that they are picking up their children. And to this extent, I also ask for the ministry to quickly speak to the types of phone that our children are also carrying, because that's increasing their risk. The types of phones. Now, the technology, time now and thing, and you might have to have access, but the school a child should have nothing more than $1,000 phone to school. Him can have him $50,000 and $200,000 phone at home. But no thief was interested in me in 1992 when I only had what was left of my lunch money. No thief was interested in me when I only had what Uncle Rani would have given me as a top-up. But now, children are being perceived as an easy target for 200,000. An easy target. So while this particular case might not have been for a device, more and more we're seeing and hearing reports of thieves targeting children for the devices. The school should confiscate, because there's no need for iPhone 52 or whatever it has now gone to. There's no need for Samsung 14 Plus or whatever. That there should be, from a policy standpoint, to protect many who don't understand the risk that they're facing. So the punishment discussion is going to come when this criminal is caught and carried before the court. I've heard for the cause of hanging and on, but the policy position, the policy changes for prevention, because I wouldn't mind if there's no punishment if there was no action. If we can prevent further cases like this by policing our schools satisfactorily, educating our communities efficiently, and also informing our parents on how to best protect their children, I believe that we will not be here so often speaking to the negatives of the most vulnerable, being harmed, being molested, and being killed. So I thank you again, Senator Longmore. I thank the government for being active at this time, including the Ministry of Education, and I hope that the recommendations, we can have space for conversation so that those recommendations can be fleshed out further and implemented if of worth and if worthy. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you very much, Senator Crawford, and from both presenters. There are recommendations that I'm certain will be discussed going into the future. I don't think that any of them is a one-cap-fit-all. Environments may differ and circumstances, but it is a call upon everyone, the PTA bodies that would have regular meetings, every school as a PTA, that they can have their own discussions to see what best fits their school, and the community organizations what best fits their community. You know, just driving around in Montego Bay, at times I see some kids walking to school by themselves and they can't see over the bonnet of a car, and so that in itself poses tremendous challenge, especially when we have the limitations with even our sidewalks that may not be sufficiently wide or may be broke, not cause persons to, or the kids to venture into the into the roadway and so forth. And with the change in climate and the heavy rainfalls, we see what has happened in the past, and even recently in St. James, where 2 youngsters had to be rescued by residents in a particular community when they fell into a drain. So the recommendations are very useful, and I commend both of you on your presentations. I think you wanted to make a last comment, Senator Longmore, and I will permit you just to make that call that you were going to.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, President. And you know, it's really that important. Two calls championing for that position at the Bustamante Children's Hospital to be filled for psychologists, one, and two, for whoever knows anything about this case, please let us not let this one go unsolved. I think our children and I think Daniel deserves some answers. So somebody must know something. Somebody must have an idea. Call Crime Stop. Alert someone to something that might lead to some sense of justice in this case. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, we will conclude today's sitting of the Senate. The question is that the Senate be adjourned. Those in favor? Aye. For a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? And there is no call for divide. Thank you very much.
It's here, Jamaica's new polymer banknotes. Polymer banknotes are produced from a thin, transparent and flexible plastic film. Why the transition from paper to polymer? Polymer banknotes stay cleaner, they're more difficult to counterfeit, and they last longer. Plus, special features on the notes, like those developed for the visually impaired, last for the entire lifespan of the notes. The introduction of polymer banknotes will increase the average circulation life of notes by at least 50%. As a result, orders for banknotes will be reduced, and Bank of Jamaica will realize savings. Look out for your new polymer banknotes.
It's Friday, June 16. In the headlines, the new sexual harassment law comes into effect July 3. Former police chief tipped to be head of the Transport Authority. In business news, PSOJ launches social IPO Project STAR. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago pledges support for World Health Organization's Pandemic Accord. Internationally, Iran's Raisi signs several cooperation deals in Cuba. And in sports, Windies win against UAE. In entertainment news, entertainers speak out about the murder of 8-year-old Daniel Rowe. This is the Weekend News on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Former Commissioner of Police Owen Ellington could be the next chairman of the Transport Authority. Minister of Science, Energy and Telecommunications and Transport Daryl Vaz says he will in short order submit a recommendation to the Cabinet. He made the announcement while delivering the main address at the authority's Transportation Conference 2023 at the University of the West Indies Regional Headquarters in Mona, St. Andrew.
I want to thank the outgoing board of the Transport Authority and all the other transport boards for their service. As you know, when a new minister comes, it's automatic that the boards fall away. And I want to thank Joe Shukir, the outgoing chairman, and the entire board of the Transport Authority. But to start off by saying that I invited former Commissioner Owen Ellington here because it is my intention to take to Cabinet in short order a recommendation for Owen Ellington to become the new chairman of the Transport Authority.
The Transport Authority is the agency charged with responsibility for the licensing of all public and commercial vehicles and the regulating and monitoring of public transportation in Jamaica. Managing Director of the Transport Authority, Ralston Smith, says just over 33,000 transport licenses have been issued. He says the sector is linked to the country's productivity and stakeholders must find the most efficient and productive model.
Public transportation is more than a social good. It is more than just moving people from point A to point B. For me, it is an interconnected web that facilitates the movement of people, goods and services for the advancement of the society as a whole.
The commencement date of the Sexual Harassment Act is set for Monday, July 3, 2023. Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange, made the announcement during her contribution to the sectoral debate this week. Minister Grange says her ministry has been working to put the mechanisms in place in investigating and adjudicating complaints of sexual harassment.
This has included the recruitment of investigators and the appointment of the panel to hear each case. We have already hired 4 sexual harassment investigators, a senior investigator and 3 other persons to support her.
She says sensitization sessions have been done with companies and helplines are also in place for both men and women.
We have our helplines, which is widely publicized, and it's not just for women, but also for men. And we make sure that it is a man who answers the number for men. Because if a man really wants to, whatever he wants to say, he wants to feel comfortable, he can say it to another man.
The minister also informed that a list of proposed members of a tribunal will be taken to Cabinet within the next 2 weeks. She's reminding those in leadership positions to ensure that employees are informed about the new law.
I use this opportunity to remind every employer and person in charge of an institution and landlords of their responsibility, and certainly the institutions and the companies, their responsibility to ensure that the policy statement required under the Sexual Harassment Act is prepared and brought to the attention of each worker, client, student, resident, ward, inmate, patient, or member, as the case may require.
She says companies have 12 months to update their workplace policies to reflect the regulations of the new law.
The Bureau of Gender Affairs has been holding sexual harassment sensitization sessions with public and private organizations, schools, community-based organizations, and faith-based organizations. The Bureau has also been assisting organizations to develop or revise their anti-sexual harassment policies in keeping with the law.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
In the business report for June 16, the private sector organization of Jamaica launched an initial public offering for the Social and Economic Transformation Initiative, Project STAR, on the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange. The objective is to raise $100 million. The social shares will be offered for $1 before month end.
We believe that if we work in partnership with the government of Jamaica, with the Jamaica Constabulary Force, with the Jamaica Defense Force, because we're going to partner with them also, because they have the HOPE program, we believe that we can make a real impact. And we can build out a community development model in partnership owned by the community to make a real difference for Jamaica.
CEO and co-founder Jermaine McDonald of Learn, Grow, Invest says he is looking forward to the positive impact of the new venture.
I am interested in seeing the prospectus, though. I'm interested in, as a community of Learn, Grow, Invest that's big on outreach, is big on giving back, helping to support, communities, etc. through financial literacy. I'm definitely, happy to see this project. I really hope it gets the funding it needs. I hope that the funds are managed well, and I hope that the outcomes that are seeking to be obtained will be obtained for the betterment of everyone, really, because
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the World Bank's visit to Jamaica is a testament to Jamaica's reputation as a steadfast partner within the international financial multilateral system. The delegation, led by World Bank President A.J. Banga, met with Mr. Holness at Jamaica House. On Wednesday, he visited a Jamaican greenhouse farm that uses abandoned bauxite mining pits to collect rainwater for drip irrigation, allowing 20 local farmers to grow peppers and tomatoes, selling some to resorts. After helping plant some seedlings, he said the project, launched with a World Bank-supported government grant, marries two main goals of his vision: sustainability and jobs. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, June 15, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.28. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $117.49. The pound sterling traded for $196.56, and the euro sold for $169.15. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by 3,765 points. The junior market index declined by 23 points. The combined market index declined by 3,732 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 333 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 110 stocks, of which 42 advanced, 49 declined, and 19 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services Limited, CAC 2000 Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Trading firm were Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, Derrimont Trading Company Limited, and Epley 7.50% preference shares due 2024. The overall volume leaders were Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 8 million units, Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with over 4 million units, and 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited with over 3 million units. In regional stocks in Trinidad and Tobago, zero securities were traded. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Goddard Enterprises Limited was once again the sole security trading 916 shares. In regional business, Guyana is seeking the support of Jamaica as it moves towards the digitalization of services needed by members of the diaspora.
An EU delegation, government officials from various ministries and agencies, and representatives from Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago were in attendance at the workshop on Wednesday and Thursday. This workshop is focused on diaspora engagement efforts. On Wednesday, Lloyd Wilkes, the director of the Diaspora Unit in Jamaica, explained that Jamaica held many engagements with its diaspora and continues to do so to satisfy the interest of the diaspora. It relies heavily on creating investment opportunities because, for the most part, the diaspora is interested in how it can make money when it visits or returns to the homeland. Wilkes, however, said Jamaica wanted to create a system that provides information and access to registering without physical presence or to allow for a shorter process when present. Digitalization seemed to be the solution.
And we have received support to develop what is called a digital registration portal. And the benefit of a digital registration portal, which is now ready, is that we can gather information from the diaspora that covers all angles. And they receive a benefit from it, meaning that they can register themselves. They can tap into that portal so as to determine different things about Jamaica. Things about agencies, things about investments that are taking place, things about government agencies in general, things about themselves.
And Guyana wants to implement similar programs as Jamaica to make the digitalization process easier, according to the head of the diaspora unit under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Rosalinda Rasool. She explained that the unit currently acts as a bridge for the diaspora to connect to local agencies. At this workshop, however, the agencies were informed of the necessary technical guidance they need and systems that must be established to meet the demand.
We actually have our website that's on the construction right now, and we've already have all the content for it. It's just a matter of launching it. And part of that website actually speaks to exactly what we've heard in the workshop yesterday, where there will be what we call the low-hanging fruits of investments for the diaspora, something that reaches their finances, something that reaches their pocket, who engage the diaspora and in terms of the service, and they're able to digitalize a lot of their services. I think that would really transform diaspora engagement.
In market data for oil steadied as a market outlook tightened by higher Chinese demand, and OPEC plus supply cuts was balanced by expected weakness in the global economy. Brent crude rose 4 cents to $75.71 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude also gained 4 cents to $70.66. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney. Back to you, Simone.
In regional news, Trinidad and Tobago has pledged its support for the World Health Organization's Pandemic Accord, which aims to strengthen pandemic prevention, preparedness and response. The announcement during a joint media conference by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus was made on Thursday.
Minister Dr. Keith Rowley acknowledged the significant role played by the World Health Organization to assist government with its COVID-19 response, especially with regard to voicing its opinion on vaccine equity for small island states. WHO's Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus assured that the Pandemic Accord will address this issue.
We have to prevent it from happening. And there are two things we're pushing, among others. One is the Pandemic Accord.
The Pandemic Accord is a pact between member nations to work together for a shared response to shared threats. Dr. Rowley was praised by the WHO for being an advocate for vaccine equity and said he's confident such an accord will benefit the region.
But what the pandemic experience has demonstrated, that we need equivalent commitment to govern behavior in circumstances like that.
Meanwhile, Dr. Tedros praised the country for its response during the pandemic, given the many challenges, including access to vaccines.
I appreciate His Excellency's leadership on COVID response and what could have been done within the all the things available, I think has been done.
Dr. Rowley said TNT must continue to be alert, citing the parallel healthcare system as one of the main factors behind a successful COVID-19 response.
We had 3 new hospitals, 2 of which were virtually empty, just about to be opened, and a third that we were just occupying. That was a resource that was absolutely probably unique.
The Pandemic Accord is currently being drafted and set to be completed by May 2024, with the WHO hopeful that all 194 member states will sign on. Sonolala, TTT News.
More than 1,000 vulnerable families in Grenada who have no internet access will soon benefit from the JUMP project, an initiative developed by the government of Grenada and Flow.
Connectivity and access to the internet has become crucial for education, information sharing, communication, and social activities around the world, and this joint effort will help ensure that Grenadians don't get left behind. During the outbreak of COVID-19, many children in Grenada were unable to attend online classes as they had no access to devices or the internet. To change this, Flow Grenada and the government of Grenada have joined forces to develop the JUMP project, geared towards providing low-cost internet connection to 1,500 families on the island. Lincoln Batiste, country manager at Flow Grenada, says beneficiaries will receive free digital literacy training as part of the program to empower and educate both parents and students. Minister for ICT Lennox Andrew said the JUMP project is a solution to the challenges faced by some families in Grenada. He hopes that the partnership can expand the number of families benefiting from the initiative in the future.
Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Frans Timmermans, is supporting Guyana's effort to balance low-carbon development agenda with new oil and gas production, stating that the country could be an example for the rest of the world.
Forestry is one of those issues where the European Union and Guyana can work more closely together. The ambition of your government, Mr. President, to make sure that Guyana, in its economic development, in the development of the fossil fuel industry, still maintains its high ambition for climate neutrality and for maintenance of your natural riches, is something we want to be a partner of. And I hope we can elaborate very concrete measures. I know, Mr. President, you attach a lot of importance to studying biodiversity and also having expertise here in Guyana on biodiversity. We would very much like to elaborate that with you and see what we can do together to make that happen as well. So in developing your country, keeping in mind that that development should not be at the expense of future generations, but to the benefit of future generations, so that the development has to go hand in hand with our fight against the climate crisis, with our fight against biodiversity loss, is something that I hope we can together showcase at the end of this year at COP28 in Dubai, where I believe the example of Guyana should be seen by the whole world, and I would like to be your partner in making sure you get the opportunity to showcase this at the highest level during COP28 in Dubai.
In news further afield, Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi has wrapped up a Latin America visit with the final stop in Cuba. He has signed several cooperation deals as he seeks to shore up support with allies who are also under United States sanctions. Al Jazeera's Lucian Newman reports.
They're from different corners of the globe, but there's a common adversary that draws them together. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi arrived in Havana, Cuba on Thursday after wrapping up visits to Venezuela and Nicaragua. All four countries share a strong hostility towards the United States, which has long-running sanctions against them. Former U.S. President George Bush, in fact, once labeled Iran and Cuba as members of the, quote, axis of evil. Raisi and his Cuban counterpart, Miguel Díaz-Canel, held private talks before their ministers signed a number of cooperation agreements. Cuba assisted Iran during the pandemic by supplying vaccines. Now Cuba is suffering from an acute shortage of fuel, which Iran may help ease.
We are grateful for your successful tour of Latin America, including Cuba.
Raisi's first Latin American visit since taking office nearly 2 years ago aimed to underscore the need for countries that do not fall under the U.S. sphere of influence or friendship to stick together. They say it will lead to further integration and the building of a multipolar world. The Iranian leader attended a business forum and promised to work with Cuba in hydroelectric power generation and mining.
I have on my agenda the commitment I made to the President. I wanted to greet you and confirm that the Islamic Republic of Iran is determined to work with friendly countries such as Cuba in science and technology and for the importance it has in our foreign policy.
The U.S. State Department has been watching the visit closely, calling it, quote, destabilizing behavior. But while Iran may be very far away from Latin America, its choice of regional allies shows that sharing a powerful common adversary is a strong incentive for sticking together. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera.
In sports, there's some news out of the Cricket World Cup. The West Indies men won their second and final warm-up fixture against the United Arab Emirates in Zimbabwe.
Coming off a confidence-boosting series in the UAE, the Windies continue to dominate as they should. Batting first in their second warm-up encounter, the Ruffman Power-led side amassed a towering 374 for 9 from their 50 overs. Leading the way was the skipper himself with a powerful 105 from 55 balls, smashing 8 fours and 8 sixes. Nicholas Pooran and Kimo Paul was also among the runs, registering 74 and 54 respectively. Mohammad Jawadullah grabbed 3 wickets for 50 runs as the best bowler for the UAE. Although they received a 3-0 whitewash mere days ago, the Middle Eastern talents were not intimidated. Number 4 batter Basil Hamid struck 9 fours and 9 sixes in an enormous effort that finished with him not out on 122. Varitya Arvin assisted with 54, but they were the only 2 batters who put up a fight as the UAE finished on 260 all out, handing the Windies victory by 114 runs. Yannick Carrier topped the bowling column with 4 wickets for 58 runs. After the game, Captain Powell spoke on his aggressive knock.
Yeah, it's very important to score runs, and score runs just right before the big show start, the World Cup qualifiers, it's important to get a little bit of runs on their belt. Runs come confidence and, just to get good preparation going into the qualifiers.
He also noted the expectations of the Caribbean men.
Yeah, I think our chances are as good as any. Once we play good cricket, play good cricket for long periods, we should be okay.
The West Indies' first clash of the World Cup qualifier is on Sunday 18th June against the United States of America.
Time now for the entertainment news. Dancehall artist Aishana making moves on the international scene. Alicia Steele has the details and more. Hi, Alicia.
Welcome to PBCJ's E-News. I'm Alicia and I have some exciting news to share with you. Aishana had the time of her life with Lil Nas X and Ed Sheeran, while we mourn the passing of Claudette Kemp. Keep watching for more updates on these stories. Over the weekend, dancehall artist Aishana enjoyed herself after performing with American rapper Lil Nas X during a karaoke session backstage of Ed Sheeran's Mathematics store in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The Slippery When Wet singer shared footage from Saturday night of the rendition of Britney Spears' Baby One More Time as the rapper danced along, and a handful of people looked on. Aishana also cheekily remarked, "Nas, you know you want me," which evoked laughter across the venue. The two artists took a couple of selfies, which cemented their new best friend status. The pair attracted attention from hundreds of Instagram users who were proud to see the equal rights singer expand her international network. Meanwhile, Aishana also linked up with the friend and collaborator Ed Sheeran. The two were visibly happy to see each other in the series of photos. Claudette Kemp, who had managed reggae and dancehall icon Capleton for over 22 years, passed away on June 9th at 1 p.m. following a long battle with her kidney ailments. Kemp was one of the few female managers in the music industry and was highly respected by the Rasta community, music producers, promoters, media, and fans worldwide. Capleton paid tribute to Kemp, describing her as his second mom and one of the best managers he ever had. Kemp was a successful insurance agent and a former producer who had managed Beres Hammond for 11 years before taking on the management of Capleton. She was awarded the Queen of Reggae Island Honorary Award for her significant contributions to music in 2019. Amidst national outrage over the brutal murder of 8-year-old Daniel Rowe, a small group of entertainers gathered at Emancipation Park on Tuesday to protest the crime and call for justice. Rowe, a student at Brighton Primary and Infant School, was abducted from the school last week and later found with her throat slashed on Roosevelt Avenue. The police have released a computer-enhanced image of a woman they believe may be connected to the crime. The entertainers at the protest urged Jamaicans to not ignore the issue of violence against children and to take actions to prevent future tragedies. They also expressed frustration with the small turnout at the protest, saying that more people should be outraged by Rowe's death. Goodbye, farewell to you, my friends. For now, that is, I want to express my gratitude for tuning into PBCJ's E-News. I particularly want to thank Hair Addiction Collections for giving me an amazing experience with hair throughout the entire E-News broadcast. They offer excellent wigs at affordable prices. You can find them on Instagram with the handle at Hair Addiction Collections. Lastly, keep in mind to live an entertaining lifestyle. Over to you, Simone Gurley.
Thanks, Alicia. And that's the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBC Jamaica. Have a great weekend.
Jamaica, a one life we have. Don't let this be your story. Look out for yourself and others. Too many Jamaicans are dying on our roads. So, slow down. It's not worth the rush. Arrive alive. A message from the Office of the Prime Minister.
Remember, gambling is just a game. Choose to gamble responsibly. Set a budget, avoid chasing losses, and stop gambling when you reach your money limit. For gambling help, call RISE 888-991-4146. A message from the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission.
You'll always remember that day you became a parent. That day, you made yourself a promise to provide for them, to protect them, laugh with them, watch them learn, and let them grow. That day you realized your biggest challenge lies in bringing them up in a world full of choices. That day you knew they would grow up fast, and the innocence you cherish wouldn't last. That day you made up your mind that no matter how things change, you would always take the time to give them parental guidance. That day is today.
Remember, parental controls are available for all devices. A reminder from the Broadcasting Commission.
Okay, students, we have concluded our topic on volcanoes for today. Now for the homework. You are to do some research on Kikim Jenny. Okay, students? Make sure to answer the questions posted in Google Classroom. Okay, guys? See you tomorrow.
Shar.
Yes, Mommy?
Are you doing your homework?
Yes, Mommy.
I hope you're not frolicking on that tablet, you know. Matter of fact, I'm coming in right now to see what you're doing. So what you're doing?
Okay, so my homework is about volcanoes. Let me test your knowledge, Mommy. Do you know of any volcanoes in the Caribbean?
Of course. I learned about the Sophia volcano in Montserrat. Matter of fact, it's still active.
You mean Sophia, Mommy?
Yes, that. That is why I'm sending you to school, to get a good education so you don't have to say foolish things like me.
But Mommy, sometimes things sound foolish and they make sense. Like what I'm researching, the Kikem Jenny volcano.
Kikem what? I never heard of that for all of my days in school. Which country you find that?
It's not in a country, it's under...
Under where? At the second time you come to me with these strange homework, you know. Like a teacher, them just make up things to turn in a moo-moo.
No, Mommy. My teacher always has their lesson plan and she does her research.
Says who?
Yes, Mommy. Sharkel is correct. The Ministry of Education has a national standards curriculum. This is a special plan that helps different persons to know what to do for Sharkel to achieve her educational goals. These persons include the leaders at her school, her teachers, other members of staff, and even you and Sharkel as family members. Everything she has to do because of school is what this special plan is about. It was developed by officers from the ministry along with teachers and other members of the society.
See, I told you, Mommy, my teacher knows what she's doing. It's not made up at all. Kikem Jenny is an underwater volcano in the Eastern Caribbean. Come, let me show you. The Ministry of Education is ensuring the holistic educational development of all the nation's children for a bright and prosperous future.
Every child can learn, every child must learn.
It's here, Jamaica's new polymer banknotes. Polymer banknotes are produced from a thin, transparent and flexible plastic film. Why the transition from paper to polymer? Polymer banknotes stay cleaner, they're more difficult to counterfeit, and they last longer. Plus, special features on the notes, like those developed for the visually impaired, last for the entire lifespan of the notes. The introduction of polymer banknotes will increase the average circulation life of notes by at least 50%. As a result, orders for banknotes will be reduced, and Bank of Jamaica will realize savings. Look out for your new polymer banknotes.
you ever wondered what it would be like if you couldn't see?
Lord, where is this going now?
Well, remember my friend Abby who is visually impaired?
From church?
No, from school. I introduced her to you at the PTA meeting.
Oh, yes. And she can play the violin real good. That girl, she's going to be a music star.
I don't know about that.
What do you mean?
The thing is, she is having problems because we don't have any Braille music sheets for her to read in class. So I have to be telling her what notes to play, and that is kind of burdensome. Yes, she is my friend and I want to help her, but I can't focus on her work and my work. It's just too much.
She tell the teacher?
Yes, Mommy, but the teacher searched and couldn't find any free ones. And she would have to buy it out of her pocket. And she said she doesn't have that kind of money.
That don't sound right. Child too talented not to get a fair chance. If the ministry can help Miss Clara blind son to get to do his exam in Braille and all pass with flying colors, they must can help her out, man. The teacher needs to call the ministry to find out how they can assist her.
Indeed, something can be done to help Abby. In fact, the Disabilities Act states that alternative arrangements within the education system should be made in order to facilitate the education of persons with disabilities, whether in public or private institutions. This support should be suited to the individual's needs so that they are not at a disadvantage in relation to their education. The institutions must make reasonable arrangements and give the student or trainee the support they need to be able to access their education. Institutions can reach out to the Ministry of Education for support either through the Special Education Unit or through other regional special education representatives.
That's right, because I am sure I heard on the news that the Disabilities Act says that nobody get left out.
And Mommy, another thing. You said Miss Clara's blind son. You're not supposed to say that.
What else I must say? I'm blind.
You must say her son who is blind.
What the difference?
Well, you should acknowledge him as an individual before his disability.
Beg pardon, holy head good.
The Ministry of Education is ensuring the holistic educational development of all the nation's children for a bright and prosperous future.
Every child can learn, every child must learn.
Jamaica, I can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicaeye.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.